There is a stranger living inside of you. He has been with you since the day you were born. He has watched every decision you have ever made. He has witnessed every victory and every failure. He knows things your mind cannot explain. He sees dangers before your eyes can detect them. He carries wisdom that did not come from books. Yet for many believers he remains unknown, ignored, untrained, and unheard. The greatest tragedy is not that people fail to hear God. The greatest tragedy is that they spend their entire lives listening to everything except the place where God speaks. Many believers are searching for a voice from heaven. They want signs, they want dramatic experiences, they want something spectacular, yet all the while God has placed a witness within them, a quiet guide, a faithful monitor, a spiritual compass. The question is not whether God is speaking. The question is whether we know where to listen. The Christian life becomes difficult when we misunderstand our own nature. Confusion grows when we do not know who we really are. Many think of themselves as physical beings trying to have spiritual experiences. But the Bible reveals something very different. You are first and foremost a spirit. You possess a soul, and you live in a body. 1 Thessalonians 5:23 reveals this divine order. Spirit, soul, and body. This order is not accidental. God placed the spirit first for a reason. The spirit is the highest part of man. The spirit is the deepest part of man. The spirit is the part designed to fellowship with God. The body allows you to contact the physical world. Through your eyes you see, through your ears you hear, through your hands you touch. Your body gathers information from the natural realm. Your soul allows you to contact the intellectual realm. Your mind reasons, your emotions feel, your will chooses. The soul analyzes information. It weighs possibilities. It reaches conclusions. But your spirit was created for something higher. Your spirit was designed to know God. Your spirit was created to receive divine life. Your spirit was fashioned in the image of God. The hidden man of the heart is not your body. The hidden man of the heart is not your intellect. The hidden man of the heart is your spirit. This hidden man is the real person. The body is only the house. The soul is the personality. But the spirit is the true self. Most people spend years developing the house. Many spend years polishing the personality. Few spend time strengthening the spirit. This creates an imbalance. The body becomes dominant. The mind becomes loud. The spirit becomes weak. When the spirit is weak, the believer becomes dependent upon outward evidence. Every decision must be justified by visible proof. Every action must make perfect sense. Every step must satisfy human reasoning. Yet faith does not originate in the senses. Faith originates in the spirit. This is why there is often a battle within. The spirit says move forward. The mind says wait. The spirit senses peace. The mind creates arguments. The spirit receives light. The mind demands explanations. The believer stands between these two voices. One comes from reasoning, the other comes from inward knowing. Many mistakes happen because people trust reasoning above spiritual perception. The mind is valuable. The mind is a gift. But the mind was never created to lead. It was created to serve. God never intended the intellect to occupy the throne. The spirit was designed to lead. The soul was designed to cooperate. The body was designed to obey. When this divine order is reversed, confusion enters. A person may possess great intelligence and still miss divine guidance. A person may understand facts and still fail to recognize truth. Knowledge alone cannot replace spiritual perception. There are things the spirit knows before the mind understands. This is the realm of intuition. Intuition is not imagination. It is not emotion. It is not human speculation. It is the ability of the spirit to receive knowledge directly. Long before the mind reaches a conclusion, the spirit may already know. Long before evidence appears, the Spirit may already sense direction. This inward knowing has guided believers throughout history. It operates quietly. It does not force itself forward. It does not compete for attention. It waits patiently beneath the noise of daily life. The problem is that many have trained themselves to ignore it. They trust fear more than faith. They trust pressure more than peace. They trust appearances more than inward witness. As a result, the Spirit becomes increasingly neglected. Imagine a person who never exercises a muscle. The muscle grows weak. Its strength diminishes. Its usefulness declines. The same principle applies to the human spirit. A neglected spirit loses sensitivity, not because God stops speaking, but because the believer stops listening. God communicates spirit to spirit. John 4:24 declares that God is spirit. This truth changes everything. God does not primarily communicate through physical sensations. He does not depend upon natural reasoning. His communication begins in the deepest part of your being. Romans 8:16 says that the Spirit bears witness with our spirit. Notice the language. The Spirit bears witness. The Spirit does not always shout. The Spirit does not always argue. The Spirit bears witness. There is a profound difference. A witness is an inward certainty, a quiet knowing, a settled conviction. It often arrives without explanation. You cannot always describe it. You cannot always defend it. But deep within you know. Many believers ignore this witness because it feels too simple. They expect something dramatic. They expect something emotional. They expect something overwhelming. Yet God often guides through peace. God often guides through inward assurance. God often guides through spiritual awareness. The inward witness rarely screams, but it remains consistent. When confusion fills the mind, the witness remains steady. When circumstances change, the witness remains unchanged. When emotions rise and fall, the witness continues speaking. The challenge is learning to distinguish between the voice of the Spirit and the noise of the soul. This requires spiritual maturity. The emotions may become excited about an opportunity, but excitement is not guidance. The mind may construct convincing arguments, but logic is not always direction. The flesh may desire immediate satisfaction, but desire is not wisdom. The inward witness operates differently. It produces peace. It produces certainty. It produces quiet confidence. The Spirit does not panic. The Spirit does not rush. The Spirit does not manipulate. The Spirit simply knows. How many believers have talked themselves out of divine guidance? How many have reasoned away a warning? How many have ignored a check in their spirit because circumstances looked favorable? The mind sees the surface. The Spirit sees deeper. The mind sees today. The Spirit often perceives what lies ahead. The mind gathers facts. The Spirit receives insight. This hidden man within you possesses immense potential, far greater than many realize. The Spirit was created to walk in fellowship with God. The Spirit was created to receive wisdom from above. The Spirit was created to become the dwelling place of divine life. But this relationship grows only when the Spirit is given attention, only when the Spirit is fed, only when the Spirit is trained. And this is where the journey truly begins. Because learning to hear God is not primarily about obtaining more information. It is about developing the hidden man of the heart. It is about strengthening the part of you that heaven already speaks to. And when that hidden man becomes strong, the voice of God becomes increasingly clear. Not louder, but clearer, not more dramatic, but more recognizable. And the believer begins to discover that divine guidance was never far away. It was present all along, waiting beneath the noise, waiting beneath the distractions, waiting within the Spirit, the place where God has always chosen to speak. The hidden man of the heart was never meant to remain weak. God did not place his life within your spirit so it could be ignored. He placed his life there so it could govern your entire being. The greatest transformation in the Christian life begins when the Spirit takes its rightful place. Many believers spend years asking God for more direction. Yet the real need is often greater sensitivity. God is not withholding wisdom. God is looking for believers who know how to receive it. The voice of the Spirit becomes clearer when the Spirit becomes stronger. Just as physical exercise strengthens the body, spiritual exercise strengthens the inner man. The Spirit feeds on different food than the mind. The mind feeds on information. The Spirit feeds on truth. The mind grows through study. The Spirit grows through fellowship with God. This is why Scripture is far more than a religious book. It is spiritual food. Every time the Word is received with faith, the Spirit receives strength. The hidden man receives nourishment. The inward life becomes more sensitive. The believer begins to recognize spiritual realities that once seemed distant. The Word renews the mind, but it also builds the spirit. As spiritual strength increases, the inward witness becomes easier to recognize. What once seemed uncertain becomes clearer. What once felt confusing becomes simple, not because every question disappears, but because the Spirit becomes trained. Hebrews speaks of those who have exercised their spiritual senses. This is a picture of development, a picture of growth, a picture of maturity. God never intended his children to remain spiritual infants. He intended them to grow into men and women who can recognize his leading. One of the greatest enemies of spiritual sensitivity is constant mental noise. The modern world celebrates endless activity, endless information, endless opinions. Everyday voices compete for attention. News speaks, culture speaks, fear speaks, circumstances speak, people speak. And in the middle of all that noise, the inward witness remains quiet, not absent, not silent, but quiet. The Spirit does not compete with chaos. The Spirit waits. This is why many believers miss divine direction, not because God failed to guide, but because they never became still enough to recognize his leading. The inward witness is often discovered in moments of spiritual attention, when the heart becomes focused, when the mind becomes quiet, when the believer turns inward toward the presence of God. Something remarkable begins to happen. The Spirit starts recognizing what it could not perceive before. Many people look for guidance in outward signs. They search circumstances for answers. They search events for clues. They search other people for confirmation. But God designed the believer to live from the inside out, not from the outside in. The inward witness is more dependable than changing circumstances. Circumstances can deceive. Emotions can fluctuate. Opinions can change. But the witness of the Spirit remains consistent. There may be moments when everything appears right on the surface. The opportunity seems perfect. The timing seems ideal. The benefits seem obvious. Yet deep within there is a lack of peace, a hesitation, a restraint, a check. Many believers have learned the hard way that this inward check should never be ignored. The Spirit often sees what the mind cannot yet understand. At other times, circumstances appear difficult. Doors seem closed. Challenges seem overwhelming. Logic argues against moving forward. Yet deep within there is peace. There is confidence. There is assurance. The Spirit knows something the mind has not yet discovered. This is why spiritual guidance cannot be reduced to formulas. The Christian life is not mechanical. It is relational. The believer is learning to walk with God, learning to recognize his ways, learning to trust his wisdom, learning to depend upon his life within. The inward witness becomes stronger through obedience. Every time you respond to spiritual direction, sensitivity increases. Every time you ignore spiritual direction, sensitivity weakens. This principle appears throughout life. What is used develops. What is neglected declines. The believer who consistently follows the inward witness becomes increasingly confident in recognizing it, not because he becomes perfect, but because he becomes familiar with the voice of his spirit. Familiarity creates confidence. The more you walk with God, the more recognizable his leading becomes. This does not mean every decision will be dramatic. In fact, many of God's leadings are surprisingly simple. A quiet restraint, a gentle prompting, an inward peace, a settled conviction. The Spirit rarely creates confusion. Confusion often originates in the mind. The Spirit may require courage. The Spirit may challenge comfort. The Spirit may lead beyond human understanding. But the Spirit does not produce confusion. God's wisdom carries clarity, even when details remain unknown. The believer may not always know the entire path, but he knows the next step, and that is enough. Faith was never designed to possess every answer before moving forward. Faith trusts the one who already knows. One of the greatest lessons the believer must learn is the difference between emotion and guidance. Emotions are powerful. They influence perception. They influence decisions. They influence behavior. But emotions make poor leaders. Excitement can imitate faith. Fear can imitate wisdom. Discouragement can imitate caution. The believer must learn to look deeper, beyond feelings, beyond impulses, beyond temporary reactions. The inward witness remains steady even when emotions change. This is one reason mature believers are not controlled by emotional highs and lows. Their confidence rests deeper than feelings. Their confidence rests in the life of God within. The hidden man of the heart becomes their place of stability. Another obstacle to hearing God is dependence upon reasoning alone. Reasoning has value. God gave the mind for a purpose. But reasoning becomes dangerous when it claims authority over spiritual truth. Many people refuse to move unless they understand everything. They demand explanations before obedience. They demand certainty before faith. Yet some of God's greatest leadings arrive before complete understanding. The Spirit receives first, the mind often understands later. This pattern appears throughout Scripture. God speaks, faith responds. Understanding follows. The order is important. If understanding always came first, faith would never be necessary. The inward witness often asks us to trust before we fully comprehend. This is not blind faith. It is faith based upon relationship, faith based upon God's character, faith based upon His presence within. Romans 8:16 reveals that the Spirit bears witness with our spirit. Notice again where the communication occurs. Spirit with spirit, not merely mind with mind, not emotion with emotion, spirit with spirit. This truth unlocks one of the deepest secrets of Christian living. The believer was never intended to be guided primarily by outward pressures. The believer was designed to be guided by inward life. The same Spirit who raised Christ from the dead now dwells within the believer. The same Spirit who possesses perfect wisdom now lives within. The same Spirit who knows the future now lives within. What a remarkable reality! What a profound privilege! Yet how often believers search everywhere except the place where God resides. The answer is not farther away. The answer is closer than many imagine. The guide is already present. The counselor is already present. The helper is already present. The wisdom is already present. The challenge is learning to listen, learning to trust, learning to obey. Consider this carefully. Your spirit is not trying to become a place where God might someday visit. Your spirit has become His dwelling place. That changes everything. Guidance is no longer merely external. Guidance is internal. Direction is no longer distant. Direction is near. Wisdom is no longer inaccessible. Wisdom is available. The hidden man of the heart was created for fellowship with God, created for communion with God, created for divine partnership. And the more this reality becomes real to you, the more confident your walk becomes. Fear loses its control, confusion loses its power, uncertainty loses its dominance, because the believer begins living from a deeper source, a higher source, a divine source. The world teaches people to trust appearances. God teaches his children to trust the inward witness. The world teaches dependence upon sight. God teaches dependence upon faith. The world teaches reliance upon human wisdom. God teaches reliance upon spiritual understanding. These two systems move in opposite directions. One begins outwardly, the other begins inwardly. One depends upon visible evidence, the other depends upon spiritual reality. One produces limitation, the other produces divine confidence. And here is the challenge before every believer. Which voice will govern your life? Will it be the voice of fear, the voice of pressure, the voice of public opinion, the voice of human reasoning? Or will it be the quiet witness of the Spirit? The hidden man within you is waiting to be heard, waiting to be trusted, waiting to be strengthened. God has already provided the guidance. The question is whether you will become sensitive enough to recognize it. Perhaps the greatest discovery a believer can make is this: the voice you have been seeking is not far away. The wisdom you have been searching for is not beyond reach. The guidance you desire is not hidden in some distant place. It is found where God has always spoken, in the reborn spirit, in the hidden man of the heart, in that sacred place where his Spirit bears witness with your spirit. And when that reality becomes stronger than fear, stronger than circumstances, stronger than human reasoning, you will begin to walk with a confidence that does not come from yourself, a confidence rooted in divine life, a confidence anchored in divine wisdom, a confidence born from fellowship with God.